Hi everyone, good morning. It's Lynne Huysamen here from Kaboutjie, and I have got Keri-Lee Stroebel with me today, and I have got Laura Kim LaRue from Harassed Mom. And today we're going to be discussing something that it's important everywhere, all over the world, but particularly in South Africa. And I think right now it is a topic that is very much in the headlines, and that is racism. So as parents, I want to discuss today how to teach children about racism. And just take note that you guys can join us in the live video. If you look in the description, there is a link. You can click on that and you can join us live if you want to share your views, your experiences, ask questions, whatever it is that you want to chat about, as long as it's on topic about racism and teaching our children. And if you join in the comments or you join in on video, you stand in line to win a 100 Rand take-a-lot voucher, which we will announce at the end of the video. So first things first, Keri-Lee, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
I never know where to start with stuff like this because I do so many different things. But basically at the moment, what I am busy doing is I was a digital marketer, a professional freelance digital marketer, and I decided that I don't want to do that anymore. So I've started baking, but I sort of got involved in social activism and social justice about 4 years ago. I entered Mrs. South Africa, and I realized that there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk to the youth about. And I became involved with the South African Council for Businesswomen. I became a speaker for the South African Anxiety and Depression Association. And now I am very active in the racism space because as I'm raising a son, I'm just talking about it more and more and more. I'm trying to raise him in the right way. So I'm doing a whole bunch of different things. I blog about that. I am a theatre actress as well. So I'm kind of in between with all of this.
Awesome. Welcome, Keri. Thank you very much. I don't even remember where I met you or how. I think it was on Facebook. I don't know how, but I invited you because I have seen your posts on social media, a lot of it about mental health, a lot about racism. I've seen that you are very vocal, and I admire that. I've seen some very interesting hot topics going down in the comments of your posts. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
but it's important. Yeah, no, yes, I've seen that. A lot of people get angry, and then it gets going. But it's quite interesting to follow you. I haven't really seen your baking stuff, so that's quite interesting.
I literally just started doing it now. I mean, in the literally since I did pageants, which I am very specifically avoiding at this point. But ever since I did that, like I started Power Woman Project, where I was sort of mentoring teen girls, and I was speaking to them about bullying and social media and again, like racism. It's incredible. You think we're in 2020 and teenagers are going to kind of like be on the ball. They aren't all. So it's been a very, very interesting couple of years, but my trajectory in life has changed, 180 in the last 4 years. So yeah, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And then Laura Kim from Harassed Mom. Could you introduce yourself for anybody that doesn't know who you are yet?
So hey guys, my name is Laura. I blog over at Harassed Mom. I have 4 kids, 2 teenagers. My son is busy with his prelim exams at the moment, and then 2 younger ones. They are 6 and 9. And I also run a little digital online marketing agency that deals in that helps small businesses with their social media. So the racism topic for us is it's not even a topic. It is a topic, but it's something that we live with because my older 2 kids are children of color. Their father was obviously a person of color, so it's something that has sort of hit us directly in the face. We've had to face a lot of things over the last 18 years. Deal with a lot of things that, as a white mother, I wasn't prepared for. I didn't really know that those were things I would have to deal with. So it's something that it's become quite a hot topic in our home at the moment. My daughter, who's 16, she's kind of our little Black Lives Matter activist in the house. It's something that her and her friends are quite passionate about, which has opened us up to quite a few conversations that have challenged us, me and my family and how we think and what we do. Awesome. Yeah, so that's us.
Awesome. It's fantastic to have you, Laura Kim. I mean, I know of your blog. I've read a couple of your posts. And the reason why I invited you is because I already had this topic planned. And I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Was it on Twitter or Facebook? I can't remember. You shared a post about how you went into, I think it was a shopping mall, and you were walking around. No one took any notice of you. And the security was watching your son like a hawk. And I looked at that and I thought, I mean, I'm white. My husband is white and my children are white. So that is not something that I had ever experienced. But as I read your post, I mean, my heart broke. I just thought, how would I feel if that was me in the shop? So I'm sure you've got a lot of challenges, and I'm sure you've got a lot to bring to this conversation. So we've got some morning ladies, Kelly De Silva, Abida Alberton, Haley Bachman, Bianca von Meyer, and Carolina Sapto. You cannot read the post and you don't know what's about. Carolina, we're discussing today about racism and how we can teach our children about racism. So that's the topic for today. I'm sorry you can't read the post. I don't know why that would be. There's a description there that says everything that it's about. Cool. So we're going to get right into it. And I think, let me just take that away quick. I think for me, as a white person coming from a privileged background, born into privilege, I never thought about racism. I never, my family's not racist. So my parents, I didn't hear racist things growing up. And it was only when I was in, I think it was standard 5. I'm really giving away my age, grade 7. I was in a school that was all white, obviously. And then it changed that they accepted people of color. And I remember the first girl that came into our school. She was an Indian girl, and it was very sad because I didn't really think much about it. I think if you're born into privilege, you don't think about it because you don't see it, you don't understand it, and as a child, you're just completely oblivious. And I remember this girl arriving, and I was just very curious, and she was beautiful. And I cannot remember exactly what happened. I can't remember the details. All I remember is that some children were very derogatory and rude to her. They said some horrific things. I can't remember what it was. I'm sure she can. But I just remember feeling this deep sense of shame and embarrassment. And I think maybe, I think it's twofold. I think possibly I was embarrassed and ashamed because what was said and done was horrible. But I think the other component is, why is that still sticking with me today? And I think when things stick with you for so long, it's because of something that you've done. It's a feeling of guilt. And I think it's probably because I didn't do anything or say anything. I didn't stand up. And that's a topic that we're going to be coming into a bit later today. So the first thing here is, the topic is teaching values through our own behavior. And I think, this is really important. It's being the kind of person that we want our children to grow up into. And that is basically not being racist. Keri, have you got anything on this discussion?
Yeah, when you spoke about how your family wasn't racist, mine was, but I didn't realize that because it wasn't overt. So it was kind of like, you are nice to people of color, you treat them with respect and decency, but behind closed doors, at the bride, at the dinner table, derogatory words are used, and there's people of color are spoken about in a very specific way. And that's why when I speak about it now, and I say things like, I know what that means. I know how you're saying it, but I know what that means because I grew up hearing that. So I only really realized what racism actually was well into my 20s, because I was used to it in a sense. You don't treat people badly, but you can still say whatever you want. So it almost seems like it's okay. And I actually only really started picking up on it when I moved to Cape Town, and I realized just how racist the people in my life was, and how quiet I was. I was complicit. I didn't say anything. I felt ashamed, but I said nothing. So, you know, when we're teaching our kids through our own behavior, that is why I'm vocal. And that is why if I, like one of my pet peeves is going into, we went to the garden center down the road. And one of the white staff was speaking to one of the black staff with an accent, a black accent. And it was cringe. I said to him, can you please not do that? Like he can understand you if you just speak like yourself. You don't have to, it's embarrassing actually. And I did that with purpose because Stephen was with me. And I said to him, like, he doesn't realize, but it's embarrassing, man. I said to him, like, please stop doing that. You're making me and probably him extremely uncomfortable. So yeah, I think it's very, very important. Your parents at least, you know, were not racist, so you knew what to do. I didn't, and I don't want Stephen to be in that situation.
Well, I don't know if I knew what to do, and you know, perhaps that, you know, you've said now that there was, you know, one thing in public and another thing behind closed doors, but I wasn't taught about it. So is that not being complicit? I mean, I'm sorry, Mom, sorry, Dad. I'm not trying to point any fingers here. You know, it's just a discussion. But, you know, it was, I mean, I kind of like, you know, half of the world lives with one reality and the other half lives with a completely different one. You know, it's not up to people of color to teach us and to spread the word. I mean, it's up to us as white people to stand up and do the right thing.
Yeah, and I know that you feel like you're... Sorry, Laura, you go. I've spoken enough.
So this topic of, I think it's so important in white households to have these discussions, because even if your parents weren't necessarily outright racist, the fact that we grew up in a South Africa that we grew up in, so if you grew up in apartheid, you grew up in a racist South Africa. Whether or not your parents actively said anything, it almost, it's irrelevant, because the fact that there was so much segregation means that we grew up believing from when we were little that the separation is okay, that that's how it should be. So I was also, I think I was grade 8 when the schools opened, and that was the first time that you sort of were like, okay, there is all these other people that, where have they been going to school? What have they been doing? You kind of are then faced with it. But when you're 13, 14, 15, some of us were even older. So I think that for a white house specifically, that's where it needs to start. Those discussions, as I needed to come to terms with a lot of what I was taught first before I could do anything to teach my children, because you're naturally just, I mean, my parents also weren't blatant racist. You know, when they spoke to people of color and stuff, but it was different. When they spoke to their white friends, the body language, the tone, it's all different. So when you're engaging with someone of color, you naturally just mirror what you've been taught. So it's almost, as white parents, we have to unlearn that behavior first, and then start, you know, modeling the new behavior that we want. But what it does is it forces, you have to get very uncomfortable. I mean, I have had very uncomfortable discussions with my best friend about racism, about white privilege specifically, because, you know, for many hours, but I worked very hard for what I have. My parents worked very hard. I don't have white privilege. And it takes some time for that penny to actually drop, that it's not about how hard you work. That white privilege, by the fact that I was born white, it's there. You know, and in my household specifically, you know, I have a child of color and I have a white child. Their realities are very different. The one is born into a household, the same household, but the one is born with a privilege because of this color of his skin. And I think, you know, white people need to accept that. They need to stop saying, but I work very hard for what I have. Yes, you do. So do many black people work very hard for what they have. If you work hard, you're a good person. That doesn't automatically take away your white privilege. So you have to have those discussions with yourself and with your partner and with your family and say, guys, we have white privilege. We are privileged. You know, when we said that, when we changed our voice to speak to the gardener or the whoever we're speaking to, that is racism. You know, all our preconceived ideas of when we interact with people of color, though that is a form of racism. It doesn't necessarily mean you're out there hating on Black people. It just means you have those built-in almost ways of dealing with people of color that you have to unlearn. And you can't, I often have people like, how to talk about racism with my kid? I'm like, well, first of all, you need to admit that you have said and done racist things. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person or that you hate a whole world. That's not what it means. It just, but you have to say that, and you have to acknowledge that before I believe that you can actually go any further in teaching your child anything about race.
Yeah, the being uncomfortable is massive. It's massive. I remember having to like literally force myself when I had certain thoughts like, let's take the taxis, for example, because that's a common discussion. And I've found that when white people speak to other white people about taxis, it's almost as if they already know that they can be racist together. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, we're going to talk about taxis now, so now we can talk about why we actually hate the taxis. And I started forcing myself that when I had certain thoughts in my head, that I would literally just like, you have to force yourself to think differently. Like, that's not the reason why. And it is very uncomfortable, because then you start realizing how much prejudice and bigotry you actually have inside of you, and you'll never be perfect. You can work as hard as you like at being anti-racist. We're all going to have racist moments, thoughts, prejudices. It's constant work. It's constant work.
I think that's really important. And you know what you said there, Laura, is that, I mean, I was brought up in a household where I didn't even know what racism was. Yet there are children that are born people of color and they are being treated so badly. But the fact that I'm completely unaware of that is racist. So, you know, and I think it's important, you know, and this is what you said there. And this applies to any self-growth or personal growth that we're going to do. You need to get real and honest with yourself. And you need to admit to yourself and out loud, you know, where you've gone wrong. And then it's uncomfortable, yes, but that's the only way you can grow and become a better person. Yeah. And that's just the truth of it.
Yeah, and I just want to also comment on when Laura was talking about white privilege. I think one of the frustrating things for me is that white people have started seeing the whole concept of white privilege as some sort of insult, and it's not. I don't understand why people get so defensive about it. It's just a reality.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, and the topic of racism is something that it's an uncomfortable topic for me. I'll be honest, and I sometimes feel scared to bring it up, because there's so much animosity, there's so much anger, there's so much hatred, there's so much stuff around it that, I mean, I remember everybody was posting the Black Lives Matter, the black square on Instagram, etc. And there were a lot of posts going up on social media. And one of the posts said, if you don't say something as a blogger, you are basically in the wrong and you need to get going and post something. And I hadn't posted something. And the reason for that wasn't because I didn't want to say something. It's because it's so huge and you've only got so much space, you know, on Instagram. What do you start with? Yeah, that's why I decided I did actually do a post, but I wanted to do this video and have a real discussion about it and cover a lot of things. I mean, to put it into one little Instagram post and stand up there, I don't think that's kind of sufficient. It doesn't cover anything.
Mm. So what you did, so we had this discussion in our house about this. I had it with my daughter, who at the time was very involved with her friends, and she was talking about it and they were talking about it, and she decided not to share it, and one of her friends took her on about it, and she said, you know, because initially people were saying it was taking away the noise of every random person sharing the black square. And also she felt that it didn't change anything, like sharing it.
Yes.
What was it really going to do? So by you actually engaging in a conversation, that to me is more profound than sharing that, because it shows, I mean, it's difficult even for me now, having had these kids for 18 years and dealt with a lot. Sometimes I'm like, I'm still learning, and I'm like, you want to just post this because everybody's posting it and I support this movement, but what is a better way for me to rather engage, have a discussion, or take someone on, or stand up for something, or do something that actually could make a difference? Everybody's sharing, and I also don't necessarily believe that because a blogger shares something, every other blogger needs to do that. That doesn't mean you don't necessarily support that movement. It just means maybe you're just listening. Maybe you've decided, I'm just going to listen and hear what everybody else is saying and learn what I need to learn from this, because I don't know what to say. Rather than just saying something for the sake of saying something, and then it comes across as not genuine or not authentic or something. Sometimes it's okay to just say, I'm going to use my voice now to rather just listen. I think that's okay.
Yeah, and not everything race-related requires our commentary as white people. What I chose to do during that period was just amplify the voices of people of color. So there were loads of people sharing tips on what white privilege means and what microaggressions are and how you can help and how you can support your friends of color. And I just kept sharing those because I thought, this isn't actually about me, and I don't want to censor myself right now. Who really needs to hear what I have to say? Because I felt that in that moment, people of color must have been feeling a lot of pain and a lot of trauma having watched that video. It was horrific, and yeah, I just thought I'm just gonna amplify their voices and shut up.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I think that's why I decided on this specific topic for this video: how to teach our children about racism. This world doesn't belong to us; it belongs to our children, and they are the ones that are going to have to live in it. And I kind of almost I don't know how to say this without sounding a bit bad, but for us, it's gone. It's almost too late. We've had our childhood. The abuse and the racism has happened to people of our age. How are we really going to make a change? We are going to make the change with the future generation, and that's what I believe. And that is why I believe, how can each of us make a change to the world? It's not going to be running around with a banner. It's not going to be putting up a little black block on Instagram. It's going to be teaching our children how to do things differently, how to be better people than we have been. And I really, that is why I've chosen this topic. And I think that is where all the emphasis needs to be put now, is to make the world a better place for our children, and so that they can teach their children. I mean, if we teach them properly, they're not going to have to teach their children. Racism is not a natural state. Racism is something that is taught to people.
Yeah.
So that is what we need to do to change the world.
Yeah, what was a little bit sad for me is that when we had Stephen, I said to Dion, let us not point out that's the different colors of the kids in the school, in the sense that what's your friend's name? The brown child. Do you know what I mean? How people sort of, instead of using a name or the blonde one or whatever, I said to him, let's make no mention of it. And just sort of, I wanted, it was almost like an experiment in a sense. Like, let's not mention at all. Let's not acknowledge at all the differences that are very obvious in us. And what I noticed is that the older he got, he's seeing it anyway. So it kind of proved to me that when people say, I don't see color, it's bull. It's a lie. You do see it, and you have to see it. You must see it, because those differences are not a bad thing. Acknowledging that you have a black friend is not a bad thing. It's actually quite special. And when I have to start saying to him, listen, this person is being horrible to your friend, and what they have said is being said because. So Stephen is quite cute in that he says we're peach and brown. That's the differences between us. And he says to me, but why are they saying that to him? So, and then I have to explain to him that, baby, it's because he is not peach. And that's hard, because we thought we were doing the right thing initially, just not acknowledging the differences. And we should have. We should have.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Have you got anything to add, Laura?
Yeah, so when people, we had a discussion somewhere and people are like, I'm teaching my child not to see color. That statement is nonsense. Okay, we do not live in a world where everybody is the same. If you teach your child not to see color, then you must teach them not to see blonde and blue eyes and all of that, because the reality is we are different. And saying, if my kid comes home and says, I have a black child in my class, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just, it is what it is. And that's not offensive. It's not degrading. It's not anything. We have to stop trying to blanket it. And this is white people do this. Black people don't do it. Black people don't teach their children not to see color. We do this because we like, oh, we don't see. Of course we do. Your child sees it. I see it. I go out and I have a meeting and there's different color people in the room. And often I'll come back and I'll say to my husband, I had a meeting earlier on in the week with people from all over the world, and it was so diverse. And there was people from India, and there was this beautiful Indian woman, and I'm telling my husband this, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is fact. So I think we need to move away from this. We need to move away from the fact that we don't see color. Your child does see color. You do see color. Teach your child how to be respectful. Teach your child to not come home and say in a negative way, oh, I have 5 black people in my class. It's so terrible. That is racist. The fact that your child has 5 black children in the class, that is not racist. So we need to stop trying to sugarcoat this and make it pretty and, oh, we don't see anything. It's because we do. And the sooner as adults we acknowledge that, then the better it will be.
I think there's an element of guilt there, because when we were young, when references were made to people's differences, like, oh, there's a black child in my class, or I heard someone say, oh, they're going to move their kid to the school because it's, and I know this person well, they're going to move their kids to a different school because it's too full. So I said to him, is it too full or is it too black? Because I know the answer, because I know you. And that's because we were raised in that sort of environment, and this person is my age. I know that's what he means. And there's an element of guilt there, because we assume that there's a negative connotation with acknowledging people's skin color, and there shouldn't be.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is basically, it's recognizing teachable moments. And I think I've got here, there was somebody asked how to bring up, oh, we've got a lot of comments going here now. Wow. Okay. Sure, I can't find it. There was one comment here that asked, how do we, bring this up in a subtle way with our children? Firstly, I'm not so sure it has to be so subtle. We can just talk about it. I don't think there's anything wrong with just having an open discussion with your child. And there's nothing wrong with saying black, colored, white, or anything. It just describes the person. It's like the blue-eyed girl or the brown-eyed girl. I don't think it's wrong at all to, talk about skin color, but there's just so much uncomfortableness around this. And then recognizing teachable moments. This was really sad for me. I think it was last year, my daughter and we were in Checkers, and at the till, she says to me very loudly, she said, "Why do only brown people want to work here?" And I looked at her, I said, "Sure, honey, I can't answer that in one sentence. This is a huge topic." I said, it's not that they want to work here. It goes so deep. And I told her, when we get home, we will have a talk. And it was quite nice in the way that, it was the first opportunity I had to engage with her with a topic that she has started and to really teach her. And we went into so much about inequality. We went into Madiba and how the fact that he was in jail for 27 years and became president and all this stuff. And she was shocked. She knows nothing about it. And at that stage, she was about 7, turning 8 last year. And she looked at me and she just said, but what about this friend of mine and this friend and this friend and this friend? They brown. Have they been treated badly? And I said, well, I haven't asked them. I haven't spoken to the mother about it, but the one girl was black. The other 2 girls were colored. And I said, I'll bet my ass that they know all about racism. They know all about it because they are born in it. And she was so upset and so sad. So, it really is important to take these moments to teach them.
Yeah, I'm not interested in sugarcoating the discussion, because if he asks me a question, I feel personally he needs to know the truth. So, for example, and it's the same thing when his grand died. He asked me what happened, and I told him, because he's a little person and he's learning how to be a human being, how to be a grown-up. That's what I'm doing. I'm raising a person. So I can't sugarcoat it until, there's some magical age at which we can have the conversation. He needs to understand it now, because he is going to school with loads of different people. And I need him to understand that we speak up and we treat everyone the same. And I need him to understand the history of this country. I bought a book the other day about Steve Biko. And when I was in Clicks and I was holding the book that I bought, and the cashier said to me, oh, is this for your studies? So I said to him, no, I want to read it because I actually realized I don't know anything about the man. And he says to me, oh, I said to him, listen, when I was in high school, they quickly spoke to us about Mandela. We learned the new national anthem. We were taught about the new flag. And then we carried on and we learned about World War II. I didn't learn about the history of this country. I had to teach myself. And that is very important for me. I need Stephen, not just about Madiba, but to understand everyone, Helen Suzman, everyone that participated in the freedom fight for this country.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I don't know all of this. I'm taking notes. So we have
teachable moments. Totally. Yeah, and teachable moments are everywhere. So I'm quite involved with a variety of charities, and often I go into Mamelodi and Shoshinguve and Soweto, and I take my kids with me. They've all been. Emma, I think she was about 6 months the first time she went. And then, people are like, but you took your child into the township. You can't do that. How can you do that? And why? Why can't I do it? What is going to happen there? People live there. People live there with their families. So, and it's important for me to take my kids with. And we've had some amazing discussions from those moments because, we live in a suburb. We're quite sheltered. But to take them in there to actually see what is happening. I didn't see that growing up. I didn't know what was going on. I was sheltered from it. So to take my kids in, to go and let them see, let them experience what it's like to have a toilet that doesn't have running water. To see children that don't have what they have. It first of all exposes them to how a majority of the country are living, but it also helps them just to develop a sense of empathy and to see, okay, this is what's happening here, and explain to them why this is happening. And also now with lockdown, my husband's been going to fetch our domestic. And so he goes and he fetches her and then he brings her back. And it's also good for them to go and see, okay, this is where Jane lives. She doesn't live somewhere strange. It's not somewhere there in Mamelodi on the other side of the hill. It's a house. She's got a house, she's got a dog, she's got a kid. It's important, I think, for them to be exposed to this rather than just sort of sheltering them the whole time and saying, okay, we are here, they are there, and this is how life is. My son went in with the school. He went into Mamelodi as part of their Make a Space subject to go and see how the structures are built and things like that. And it opens their eyes up so much. And then so many of the teachable moments have come from that. Why does this happen? Why is this like this? What? And I think it's important for us not to shy away from discussing that. And if you don't know the answer, you're going to find out the answer. And if the answer makes you uncomfortable, you have the discussion even more. If you don't want to have the discussion and you're like, I don't know what to say, this is uncomfortable, you force yourself to have the discussion.
Yeah, I think there's loads of teachable moments though. There was a little girl that lived down the road from us a while back, and we all had lice. I had lice, from the school, and my kids had it, and I spent the whole day taking lice out of their hair. And then this little girl from down the road comes over, and she was always at our house, and she had this long, hair down to her butt, long, beautiful blonde hair. And she arrived, and our hair's still wet from doing all the lice and the combing and everything. And I opened the door when she knocks, and I see this girl with this long hair, and I look at her, I said, "You're not coming in until I check you for lice." And she looks at me, she goes, "But I'm not black." And it was such a shocking moment. And I said to her, "Well, I'm not black either, but I've just had lice, and the kids have had lice. They're not black." So she said, "Yeah, but lice comes from black people only." And, I look at this and I think, well, how are you being brought up? It's so shocking and so sad. But the point is that I think that there are teachable moments in almost every single day. It's about just keeping your eye open for them and teaching your child. Like, for example, I don't abuse animals. I don't kick cats. I don't kill puppies. I don't hang them. But it happens in the world. And it's important. My children don't do it either. But it's important that my children knows it happens. The same with people that are gay, people that are transgender. It's about teaching your children about everything. There's the gender-based violence, and that's another huge topic that needs to be, well, I actually addressed it the other day with abuse. But the point is that just because you don't personally do that in your own home doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And we need to teach our children about what happens elsewhere in the world. It's sad, it's shocking, but it needs to be done.
I think my frustration with teachable moments is that what I struggle with as a mom is that I get very upset about this particular topic, because what I always go back to in my head is that it's been, 25, 26 years out of apartheid, and the fact that we still have, that townships still exist at all really pisses me off, because first of all, they should never have been put in those living conditions. They were deprived of schooling. It's interesting. I had a discussion with one of my husband's colleagues the other day, Botemelu, and I said to her, I keep thinking to myself that I wish I could do something to just abolish townships and give everyone decent living conditions. But then something clicked, and I thought to myself, I feel the way the stories she was telling me, township life is also a culture. So I said to her, is it even possible to abolish the whole township situation? And she said to me, honestly, I don't think so. Because of the culture, what needs to happen is the conditions need to improve. It needs to be, paved streets, electricity, decent housing, running water, like everybody else lives. It's simply not fair. But I have the struggle when I speak to Stephen, because the injustice of it and the inequality that we're still living with in 2020, it actually makes me so angry that I have to temper myself and be like, okay, just calm yourself, take a deep breath, and have a conversation with him. He doesn't understand where your rage stems from. So I struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah, the living conditions are obscene. My daughter, I've had discussions with her, and she said to me, well, how can people live without a toilet? How can they live with no running water in their home? It's something that my daughter cannot comprehend because she's never been there. Yeah,
I could speak forever on it. It really makes me very, very angry. So I actually, this year has been very interesting. Lockdown has been very interesting for me in a personal sense. There's a lot going on. I know Lynn knows the backstory, which I can't discuss yet, but I have I've signed up for a law degree. So I just thought to myself, if there's any way, if I'm going to create any actual change, I need to arm myself. So I'm going to be doing a law degree so that I can fight and do something, because otherwise I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, and it's fantastic, we need people that are going to stand up and fight. But the other side of it is that one person can't change the world or the country. You know, we can't have like one or two people fighting the good fight and everybody else sitting and with their blinkers on and ignoring the situation.
Yeah.
You know, I think us as mothers, we have got the hugest role to play, because we are the ones that are going to teach the future generations the right way. So, yeah, we need the fighters. We definitely need that. But it's us as mothers that are going to do the biggest, you know, portion of it.
Huge responsibility. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
totally.
I just want to, Sasha asked a question here. She said that some of us have a fear of bringing it across in the wrong way. And I just want to quickly maybe offer some thoughts there. So I think it is scary. And I've had discussions with my kids and they've actually called me. They've said, what you've just said is racist. So obviously they're a bit older. So if you're dealing with younger kids, you obviously have to try and navigate what you say. But I think what I said earlier about how you have to make sure that you've dealt with it in yourself, because if you've dealt with it, then you can have an honest discussion with them about it. And there is no wrong way. You know, the right way is to basically teach them that you know, racism is bad. That is ultimately the message you're trying to get across. And I don't believe having a discussion, any discussion, is the wrong way. And if you walk away from a discussion and you're like, oh, I didn't handle that great, have another discussion. If they opened up the topic, if they asked a question, they're open to talking about it. So talk about it again. Go Google something, read something, reach out to a person of color and say, my child had this discussion. Can you maybe help me how to answer it? And then have the discussion again. I think there's no wrong way to talk to your kids about this unless you are actively sharing racist thoughts with them. So I think a lot of the time we are scared to have these discussions. Like we said earlier, like nobody wants to talk to your kid about sex. Like, oh my goodness, no, we can't talk about that. But then it leads to a whole series of problems later on in their life. Like, you know, so I think removing the fear out of having the discussion is the first start. Just start talking, have the discussion, answer the questions, and then go from there.
I think the biggest teachable moments is for them to see that you're also learning and you're also trying, because again, none of us are perfect. So for them to see that you are, well, actually, baby, I don't know. Let's go and do some reading. Or, you know, I actually didn't handle that well, or I said the wrong thing last time. Can we talk about it again? I think you're spot on there.
I love what you've said there. And I think part of teaching our children is that we all make mistakes. And if we can acknowledge that to our children and say, I didn't handle that well, or I answered that incorrectly, let's go back and redo this. What is that going to teach your children? It's going to teach them a lot more than if you avoid a difficult topic, or if you've made a mistake and you're like, well, I must keep quiet because I must be perfect. Being honest and being real and just trying our best with our kids is going to be the best way to teach them. Always. I mean, I make loads of mistakes. Yeah. I sometimes feel I make a couple too many all the time, but I just turn around and try and make it better. And then this is a topic that Keri wanted to bring up, and that is why it's important to stand up vocally against racism.
Yeah, it's something that, because it happens so often in this country, I don't think we have the luxury anymore of being quiet. Not with our families, not with our friend groups, not online. And I'm guilty of joining every fight I'm invited to, and I'm working on it. But I think it's important to call it out when you see it. Always, it has to be done, and it sucks because a lot of people don't like me for that. But it has to be done. You must do it. If we're going to move forward, if we want our kids to be in this exact same situation in another 20 years, we can keep quiet some more. But if we want this to change, we're going to have to be uncomfortable. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, Keri, what I've personally experienced is I have not really seen too much racism directly, openly against people of color myself. But what I have encountered a lot personally is where a white person thinks I'm part of their team and speak to me in a racist way about somebody else. You spoke about children in a class, like if there's a lot of people of color in a class, I've had people say to me, like another parent of a child in our class say to me, oh, there's a lot of dark people in our class now, isn't there? And I'm like, what? That makes me incredibly uncomfortable. And there's been a lot of occasions of, that sort of thing. And I now just turn around and say, well, children are children, and that's that. I don't care what color they are, or how many black, how many white, how many colored. It doesn't actually make a difference to me. I've actually had somebody say to me, oh, you have a lot of colored friends. I say, no, I have a few friends. I don't have a lot of friends. Some of them are white, some of them are colored. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't really make a difference. I actually have looked now, and I realize I actually have a lot of colored friends, and I'm not ashamed of it. It's just people that I've connected with. It doesn't really matter what skin color they are, but I don't understand why people feel a need to point that out to me.
I think, again, there's an element of guilt there that people don't acknowledge. Because
and it's generally it's people our age that have grown up in apartheid, that have grown up, we were not exposed to diverse situations. We had people of color in our schools at high school, but they were there. We were here. We very seldom, it took us a while before we actually started making friends with them or reaching out to them or things like that. So I think we've grown up with this idea. It's like hardwired in us. Black people must be friends. People of color must be friends with people of color. White people must be friends with white people. And that's just how it is. And then if you're white, you're on team white. And that's naturally, you must not like all people of color. And, it's such nonsense. And I mean, like you said, I also get it where people just will make a statement like that. And then you're like, no, buddy, if there's too many people of color in the school, maybe you want to go to Aranya. Like, just move on. Go somewhere where I don't have to deal with you. I don't have to look at you because and I mean, yeah, it's a difficult thing. And to be honest with you, this fight for me only started really becoming important as my children grew up and I saw the differences and they started making me aware of the differences and the differences in how they were treated. And when I saw how they were treated differently, and when people see me and then they see my kids and they try and make the connection, and I'm like, yeah, you were just a racist moron and here's my kid. Like, so it's something that I think has become not just an option. For me specifically, if I don't talk up about racism, I'm basically not talking up for my kids, which is not an option. When you're a parent, you don't have that luxury. So it might have started from a different place to everyone else, but I do believe that, the only way for us to teach our kids about racism is to stand up. So if you're out and someone says something racist, you're like, no, bud, that's not cool. We don't do that. Even if they don't change, that person doesn't change or whatever, at least your kids are seeing that you're trying to do something to make the situation better.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think, like I've taught my children about bullying. My son went through a period of time where he was bullied quite a lot. That was in grade R, and it was very distressing. And the one occasion he came home from school and he told me he had the worst day because all the children told him to hurt another boy, and they told him to do his worst of the worst to that other boy. And this is not about race. This is just about bullying. And I said to him, but you look upset. So did you hit that boy? And he said, yes, I did. So I said, well, all we can do now is tell the school, we can tell that child's mother, and you can go and apologize. And I said, but it's important. I said, this moment now, it's important to stand up. I said, you're obviously scared that if you don't hit that boy, you are going to be the one that's hit. But you need to accept that, you need to be brave and be the boy that stands up and says, I'm not going to hit that boy. And yes, there might be a bit of a backlash from that, and in the same way, this is what you need to do with racism. You need to stand up. You need to say something. It's all part of the same thing, the bullying thing, that you've got to just stand up and do the right thing.
Yeah, and people will try and make you feel sort of bad about it. Like I've been told before, oh, you're always so negative and you're always so angry about it. And why do you always talk about these intense topics? Lighten up, or don't be so aggressive. And I'm just like, and initially it did get to me and I thought, geez, maybe I am just like a grumpy old cow and I'm just like so intense about these topics, but it's what I care about and it's what I'm passionate about. And I just thought to myself, it's a silencing tactic.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to hear about it. And it's that saying, if you think you're sick of hearing about racism, imagine how sick people are of experiencing it. So I just thought to myself, well, if you don't like it, you know where the block button is, you know where the unfriend button is, and you are very welcome to delete my number. And it does take time to get there because it did make me feel quite bad about myself initially, strangely.
Yeah, I've seen on your posts on Facebook, I've seen quite often that people respond and say, why are you stirring the pot? And I found that quite interesting because you're not the one that's stirring the pot. You are the one that's calling a spade, making other people feel uncomfortable, sure. But I don't think that taking a stand against racism and calling people out is stirring the pot. It's, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, they're welcome to block me.
We've got Keri Mom that has joined on the video, but you haven't connected. You've connected your audio, but you haven't connected your video. If you connect the video, then you can wave at me and tell me you're ready or a thumbs up, and I can. There's your thumb. Okay, I'm going to bring in Keri Mom.
White power.
Hi. Oh, she's gone.
Disappeared.
Well, maybe she'll come back soon. And then this is a topic that I'm very interested in, and I was thinking of bringing it up, but Keri took this topic: how we can encourage schools to get actively involved. Keri, go.
I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. But I want to talk about it because I think it's important. When Black Lives Matter, obviously, like it's not a new organization or a new cause, but with George Floyd this year, it obviously blew up. And Leseko Klabi, who is a Coconut Cows, most people will know her as Coconut Cows, she spoke on Twitter about how about the racism she experienced personally in her high school, and encouraged people to share their own stories. And some people shared anonymously and other people just commented. And it was, again, sadly, I'm 35 years old, when I realized this has not gone away. It is no different to when I was in high school. It's the same problem. People just aren't talking about it. They rather just keep quiet. They don't want to, they don't want to get upset with the schools. They don't want to cause drama. I mean, I know I don't want to be the drama-causing mom in my son's school and make life difficult for him. And when I contacted his school about whether or not they're actually going to say something, because they're a very progressive school, they ignored me, which was even worse than saying no. So I don't know the answer, but I feel like we, again, as parents and as with teachable moments, to tell our kids, if you are seeing it, if you're experiencing it, I'll back you up, take them on. Tell them, this hair policy is racist. This microaggression, this particular teacher, it's racist. Call them out. It has to be done. And I think the more we call them out, especially on social media, the schools are going to have to come to the party.
Well, what I want to know, Keri, is, I mean, every school's got an anti-bully policy. Why do they not include racism in that anti-bullying policy, and they teach children about bullying and what to do if you're bullied? Instead of waiting for an issue to happen and then addressing it, why are they not including it in their educational program? Because, I mean, racism and the inequality in South Africa is probably our biggest problem. So why are they not addressing it in school proactively, teaching children, especially in the privileged schools? Why are they not putting it as part of the program and including it in the bullying? I mean, they teach children not to bully and what to do if you get bullied. I asked my daughter about it, and I asked her, I said, does the school talk to you about racism? Do they talk to you about gender discrimination? Do they address these things? And she said no. She's already in grade 3, and I think this should be something that is kind of included right from the start.
Yeah.
So my older two kids are in high school, and I had an issue with my oldest school with this earlier on in this year. So they have a 0 tolerance on racism policy. Okay, so when you query something with them, then you get an email. We have a 0 tolerance policy on racism, and I'm like, okay, rad, cool. So we're gonna have a discussion. Everyone's gonna get called in. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna deal with it. No, we have a 0 tolerance policy on racism. So I'm like, okay, but what does this mean? This incident happened. This incident is not okay. You guys need to deal with it. And eventually it resulted in a phone call, and it resulted in a discussion. And the end of the whole point is that my feeling that I get, and while I'm not criticizing my son's school, we've had a great 5 years with them. This issue, they know that they don't handle well. But I think they're so scared or to say the wrong thing. They don't want to get into trouble for saying the wrong thing. So in this case, what they did was they were like, the head leaders must deal with it. I'm like, these kids are 17, 18. They don't know how to deal with this. They need you to help them to deal with this. This is, you have to deal with it. And it's such an issue for me, especially with the teenagers, because it's such a volatile time for them. When they're trying to find their place in the world, they're trying to figure out what side of the line they're on, what do they believe in, what do they do, and they need a bit of help to navigate that platform. And you have to, when you're teaching teenagers, you have to have the skills. And if you don't have the skills, you have to find someone with the skills to talk to them about these hard discussions. You have to take the children into the hall, and you have to have heated discussions. Maybe the black kids and the white kids, especially in our school where we've got Afrikaans in the mix, so it's coming with all of that. Even if those discussions get uncomfortable and children walk out and it gets tricky, you have to have those discussions, because if we don't change how those kids are thinking and how those kids are debating, they're going to go out into the world and they're going to carry all of that with them. And I think schools, because it's such an explosive topic, potentially, they're like, okay, we're not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. We spoke to the child that was involved, that child's okay, all right, our job here is done. Where it's not, because I feel that a lot of the responsibility, obviously it's all on us as parents to teach them, but the schools have responsibility to take those teachable moments and teach the children, engage in those discussions. It's also the same with gender-based violence. Take the boys aside and you're like, guys, that what you were saying now is unacceptable. The way you were talking about the girls, it's not okay. I see with my son's group, a lot of them call each other out for stuff, and and that's great, but I also believe that on a bigger level, on a school level, you get someone in who can facilitate these discussions. I mean, there's a lot of people who are skilled in this, and facilitate an open discussion. And yes, you're going to hurt people's feelings and you're going to get upset, and that's okay. We need to stop teaching our kids that you must be comfortable the whole time, and everybody's just going to agree with you. And if they don't agree with you, then they shouldn't be your friend. No. Teach kids how to debate, teach them how to get uncomfortable, to change how they're thinking. I mean, in the afternoon, when my son gets fetched from swimming, and my daughter comes with me, and we have these debates in the car, and she will call him out on things and he will call her out. And in doing that, they're learning how to debate, they're learning what's important for them, and they're also challenging each other on, this is not okay to think that. This is a better way to handle it. And I think those discussions, especially with teenagers today in the world, it's so important for us to do that. And a lot of that responsibility lies with our schools.
Yeah, and I think it's important to teach kids how to change their minds based on new information. People are so afraid to be wrong. We could, after this broadcast is over, get comments that say, we're wrong about this topic from a black woman or a colored woman, and saying, we don't like how you spoke about that. We have to be willing to acknowledge that we've messed up or misunderstood. Be quiet, apologize. Sometimes your commentary is not necessary. Just listen. And I think our kids need to be taught the same. Don't encourage them to double down. If they've hurt someone, even when it was not on purpose, encourage people to say sorry, and I'll do better next time, and I've learned a lesson from this, and thank you for calling me out, thank you for teaching me, or whatever. And also, like Lynn said earlier, it's not their job to do that, but if they have, I think be appreciative of the fact that you are being exposed to some growth.
But interesting enough, I see there were a few high schools. There was one in Cape Town, and actually my son's school, actually they've taken out hair policies. They've taken that part of the thing out completely. So there's nothing around hair. And I'm like, okay, so how hard was that? And now did the next day, did everybody come to school with purple and pink and orange hair and hair that you deem inappropriate? No, nobody did anything. Like, we just carry on with our lives kind of thing. But I think the school system, how it's set up, is for control, for conformity, for following the rules, and people think now if we start allowing different things, then it's just going to be mass mayhem, and it's actually really not. Just allow the kids to be who they are.
Absolutely.
I think all the things that are difficult to talk about are the things we should be talking about, and teaching our children how to talk about things that are uncomfortable teaches them how to resolve conflict and how to, come up. It's all about social interaction, and I don't think that that's going to be harmful at all. I think that can only benefit our children in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and debating skills are lacking in the world.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
We got Robin Lee saying that the parents and the PTA should be taking more responsibility on this side. I agree with you, Robin Lee. The thing is about schooling is that it's a joint thing. It should be, let me take that down, we're all hidden. It's our responsibility to bring it up with the school and to insist that they include it. Something that I actually personally haven't done.
And I think it's to hold them accountable, to say when they give you, oh, well, there's a zero tolerance policy on racism. Okay, so what does that mean? What does it look like? What are you going to do? Like, I think schools, and fortunately within a private school situation, it's very much a customer client transaction. So I have the right to demand that you change this and you look at this, because I'm paying for you to be here. In the government school situation, it is, the dynamic is slightly different, but it's a business transaction. And as a client, I'm not happy with the service that I'm getting, and you need to change. You need to relook at it. You need to do something about it. And those of us that are fortunate enough to have our kids in private school, we need to use the voices and the privilege that we have of that to demand that change, because that change will filter down. Instead of just allowing them, like you said, Keri, I don't want to get my kid I don't want to make it harder for my kid. I don't want to, and I'm quite cognizant of that. And often before I get involved with the school, I'll talk to my kids. I'm like, this is something I feel strongly about. I'm going to talk to them about it because I feel strongly about it. And, they've never really had a problem with it. But the reality is we have to stop being scared to say something because you're going to upset someone else. Because that then just we then, if we do that, we keep the status quo, then everything just stays as it is.
I also think inclusivity committees. I think that, and I actually think that those inclusivity committees must be majority student run, because then other students can have a safe space to go to, and then have that group approach the adult leadership of the school as a group, because it's hard when you're alone. So if you've got a group of your peers that you can go and say to, this is happening, or this teacher or this person or whatever, and that group is always going to be able to approach the governing body or the teachers or whatever and stand up for you. I think that's hugely powerful.
Yeah. Keri, have you got any suggestions here on books?
So let me just grab this one. I've got a bunch of suggestions, but this is an excellent book. I'm just trying to get it into the camera properly. I'm being a dweeb. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's Steve, I Like What I Like. I got it at Bargain Books. It was only $100, so it wasn't expensive at all. And they've got a massive range of books like this. I know that for white people, our go-to is kind of to read Nelson Mandela's story, and obviously there's nothing wrong with that. It's a massive part of the story, but there's loads. Oliver Tambo as well. There's loads of books. I'll get some names and I'll share them with Lynn, and she can come share them in the comments. And there's loads of really good reading material that I can share with you.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm going to write a blog post for this video and embed it. So hopefully I'll get that done this weekend. So cool. If you send me a list of stuff, Keri, I can add it into the blog post with pleasure, definitely.
And the bargain books are excellent. They will give you referrals of good books as well.
Kelly, I know you asked for books specifically, and I don't know if you're in Gauteng, but it's worthwhile to take a visit to the Apartheid Museum, to Conservation Hill, to go into Soweto, go and do a trip around there. I have mixed feelings about using Soweto as a tourist site, but the fact is you do learn a lot. You can see, it's always a good idea, because the museum there is great. So I definitely would suggest take a day out. There's a awesome vibe there in Vilakazi Street. It's amazing. You don't actually want to leave. So it's also a great way to sort of get up close and personal with the whole, the history of South Africa.
Yeah.
You've got another comment here, Bianca von Meyer. She says, as a teacher in a predominantly coloured school, most learners' perception of white people and black people are shocking, and that it stems from their family background and peer pressure. But how does she address this in the classroom? Sure.
Okay, I have something to say on this, because my ex-husband was coloured, and I've never in my life met a more racist person than what he was. And it shocked me to my very core, because I was like, what is going on here? And the more I got within, and I'm not generalizing him, the more I got to know his colored community, there is a whole lot of issues there that have stemmed from a whole lot of things. But that community that I was exposed to, specifically the colored community, they do not like white people. They do not like black people. So it is, I understand what she's saying, and I can identify with that, because, when I met his whole family and the friends and stuff, that is the perception that they had. I don't know how I suppose the only way to sort of start engaging would be to engage with them, to talk to them. I don't know how old the kids are, but we're trying to see where that stems from. It's something that for me was just so strange. And I also now I've seen on Twitter recently there's been another discussion with colored people around this, around the dislike for white people and black people. And obviously it's a generalization. I'm not saying that all colored people are like this, but it does seem to definitely be something that is prevalent in their communities. And I'm not 100% sure if it is because they don't really fit on either side. They're kind of in the middle of the color spectrum. So it is something that I've experienced on the colored community. And it's sad for me that it's still there. It's still something that's ingrained in them, because it opens us up to a whole nother challenge, of them not understanding where they fit in and how they fit, but also of their innate, and they're growing up with a hate of another group of people, or a dislike, or whatever you want. So my advice would just be to start talking, talk, engage them, find out why they're feeling like that, who said something, where is it coming from.
I would also actually encourage her to speak to a person of color or someone from the colored community. I can give you some names as well, of just someone who can, because it's difficult for us. We're not colored, we're not. So it's just generalizations, and whether we mean to or not, we don't understand. So I think for her to properly address that topic, she needs to not be talking to white women, because we don't know that community, and we're just guessing. And this is our time to back off, because and maybe just refer her to someone who knows.
Well, I think the big difficulty here is that, number one, a school and a family need to work together for the same goals. For example, schools do teach sex education, and the family, the parents, should teach sex education, and it comes together. It's the same message from both sides coming together. It's a joint responsibility. I mean, our children spend how many hours, okay, not so much lately this year, but our children spend the majority of their time at school. The school's values and the values of the family need to be in line. And I think for a teacher, this is a very difficult thing because the school is too scared. They pussyfoot around the issue. And then the teacher's left with it, but they can't say certain things because they get into trouble with the school or other parents. I think it's a very difficult situation that there's no easy answer for. But I do feel that schools need to take the responsibility, and just like they have a bullying policy, they should have a racism policy. Exactly what steps happen if someone says this in a classroom? What must the teacher say? You have a handbook, so you know exactly what you're supposed to do. And I mean, it should be done in every single school in South Africa.
Yeah, and there needs
It's
to be
not
done
about
for teachers as well. Someone needs to come in and speak to the whole body of teachers about, because they've also got internalized racism and regardless of race, this country, the issue is so complex for all of us as South Africans and for individually. I mean, it is literally a rainbow nation. I mean, there's a reason we're called that. And for every single sector, there's a different issue and a different discussion to be had. It's very, very complex.
Definitely. Just seeing what other comments we've got over here. Chantal says that she sees it at the preschool every day. Yeah, I think it's very complicated. Like I spoke about, there was that the girl that was living down the road from us, and she very clearly is white, and she very clearly has been brought up in a very racist household. For me personally, I've got a very clear policy, especially for children that aren't officially invited but decide to just about move in. I've got a very clear policy in my house. These are my rules. This is what I stand for. And if you're going to come set foot into my house, you stick to my rules. And if you're going to say something inappropriate, I'm going to open my mouth and I'm going to give you a damn good lecture. If you don't like it, go home to your racist house. And that's the way that I work it here. We've had, with this particular person, we had issues regarding behavior, sexual behavior, and we had issues, so many things. I've just got a very clear policy. If you're going to come into my house and you're going to behave in a certain way, especially in front of my kids, I'm not going to let another child's behavior rub off on my children, especially when the values are not in line with my own. I know that the parents weren't very happy with some of the things I said, and I told the child, then you don't have to come over. If you're allowed to run around the neighborhood completely free, and you've got certain values, you can't come into my house with those values and expect me to keep my mouth shut. So it's tricky.
Yeah, I had something I wanted to say, but it's gone. Can't remember.
Let's see.
I can just say something quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, Kelly just said that she's homeschools and she's it's important for her to understand. So we also homeschool, Kelly. So yay. So what I do there when we talk about something, especially if it's quite a tough topic, there's so many resources out there. So I'll actually maybe we can connect afterwards, but we did Nelson Mandela recently, and we did a bit of stuff, but it's important to get as much resources as you can. So get your kids to watch videos. There's YouTube videos. There's great kids books that have been of Nelson Mandela's, his book, The Great Walk to Freedom. They've been put into kid format. So you can get those to read to them. Obviously, you don't want to read the whole big, thick book. It's too much, but they've condensed them. So the best thing as a homeschooler, you have the freedom. You're not bound by curriculum, so you can go and you can read and you can show them videos and you can find them resources, and it'll take you down a bit of a rabbit hole. But you know, like I said, use an outing, go and see somewhere, go to a museum, go to one of the food truck monument even. I mean, that's part of our history. Go and have a look and talk about that. You have such an amazing opportunity as a homeschooler to just expose your kids to so much. So yeah, just YouTube is your friend. Actually, you can just get them to watch videos, and even if they're little, you know, you play the video, they might not get it, but then do it again next year. You know, when it comes up to Heritage Day or Freedom Day or whatever, do it again, and then the next year, do it again, and then eventually they will start, you know, to really have an understanding of the whole, the history.
Yeah, I actually also think we need to involve our kids in the politics of this country, because we're not a very politically active nation. We kind of, you know, we vote every couple of years, and I mean, political discussions are always extremely heated, doesn't matter where you live. But I think here we have a unique situation in that I voted when I was 18 the way I voted because that's how my parents voted, and you didn't dare vote for someone else because, you know, this is the white party and that's the black party, and don't even discuss it. That's who we vote for, end of story. And this party's racist and that party's racist. And I think we need to encourage our kids to actually think about what they stand for and let them decide who they want to support. I think we've got to become a lot more politically active, and teach our kids how this country works, how the judiciary works, how we elect politicians, who you can contact if you're unhappy with your ward councillors and your politicians, because I think we still have a problem where if you say something about the ANC, you're seen as racist, and if you say something about the DA, you're seen as racist. If you're the opposites, you know, if you're black and you say something about the DA, you're a racist, and if you support the ANC as a white person, you're a traitor to your race. I've had all these insults before, so I think that's actually also something that needs to be spoken about. To our teens, the kids, the little ones they won't get it, but our teens need to understand.
This is so important, and we're having these discussions now because my son just turned 18, so he can vote now on the next election, and he's like, well, I don't know who to vote for. And I'm quite political. It drives my husband mad because I want to know, I want to find out, and I'm not just going to vote for the DA because I can't vote for the ANC or whatever the white narrative is around this. I'm not prepared to do that. They don't stand for what I believe in. I'm not going to give them my vote. But the challenge then comes in for our youth is, you know, who do they vote for? Nobody's speaking to them. So, you know, I'm challenging now my kids to rather find someone, and sort of, if they start looking and they start talking, somebody has to talk to them. Somebody has to realize, okay, guys, this is all these kids now that turned 18 and you can vote now, where are their votes going? Because I can tell you now from the discussions that I've been involved with my teens, they're going nowhere. They're not going to vote. And that to me is so detrimental to the whole functioning of the country. These kids have to find a home. Somebody has to speak to them. So I push them quite hard to kind of find someone. Go read a manifesto. Don't just listen. Don't just see what you see on Twitter. You know, family, they're like, okay, but we saw this poster. They're going to stop load shedding. I'm like, okay, but what does their manifesto say? The manifesto says they're against homeschooling. Okay, is that something that you want for our family? Like, go and read the manifesto. Go read what they're saying. Read what they stand for before you put your mark down there. Because nobody's going to stop load shedding. Like, corruption will stop. Anti-corruption stuff will stop load shedding. Voting for the DA or the EFF or the Vryheidsbond, that's not going to stop load shedding. So stop. Look a bit further. So this is quite a discussion that gets very heated in our house. But I think it's important for my kids to see my husband and I arguing about it, my friends and I arguing about it, because it puts it in front of them. Even the little ones, you know, they see it and they see the posters, and we talk about it, and I talk about it all the time. I talk about it.
Just vote for the people that look like you. That gets you absolutely nowhere.
Exactly. You have to, when you actually go and read what the parties stand for, you'll actually be like, okay, wait, did I actually vote for that?
And what I found was interesting was the party that actually, whose manifesto aligns with me the most is the ANC. But now I'm sitting with them because currently they've got such an issue with corruption that I'm like, you're literally the only ones who stand for what I stand for, but I still can't vote for you because you're robbing the nation. So like, what must I do?
This is a whole video in itself, because that is the conundrum we sit with, and I'm not ashamed to say, when I could first vote, I voted for the ANC, much to my family's horror. And I think the next election after that, I also still voted for the ANC, because they were what I stood for. I knew the premiers of the provinces. I knew what they were doing. I knew what they stood for. It resonated with me. They were largely on a small scale delivering what they said they were. But if you just accept what your parents tell you, what your friends are doing, that vote to me becomes wasted. You're just putting a thing because it's you, like, I have to go vote, so I'm going to vote for the DA, rad, okay. No, we have to open our eyes. Yeah, we have to start having discussions with our political parties. We have to call them out even more than what we're doing. To say it the bra on a Saturday, ANC is so corrupt. Okay, all right. But what? To actually start trying to just get discussions opening and more people talking about it. And that begins with our kids, because ultimately it's their future now. They need to start getting involved in this. Our teens that are turning 18, our teens that are 21, they need to start voting, and they need to start taking responsibility for this.
Yeah.
Laura, I love what you're saying. And even in our age group, when it comes down to elections, I hear so many people saying, oh, we get the day off, it's okay if I'm going to go down to the beach. And I'm like, after you voted, right? No, I'm not voting. But everybody moans about the country, and it's essential. We all have to vote. Sasha here says she doesn't want to vote anymore. But, if you don't vote, nothing will change. And yes, it might not be a quick change. It might not go the way that you want it to go. But, every single vote counts. And I think teaching our children, and like you say, not just what's on Twitter. I mean, look at Trump. Okay, let's not go there. We're not going to go there, because then it's going to be like, oh my God,
I will go blood red.
But don't just look on social media. You have to really go in and research properly and figure out what everybody stands for. And I think at the moment, the biggest problem in our country is corruption. Keri, you say like the living conditions of some people, and then you see how the country is just being stolen from left, right, and center. I'm sorry, but the amount of money that's been stolen could have been spent. It probably could have housed every single person in this country.
And the narrative is that
it's shocking,
they're corrupt because they're a black party. And I'm like, guys, for real? Trump is probably the most corrupt, psychotic human on the planet, and he ain't black. It's got nothing to do.
He's racist and sexist and
it's another video on its own. But like that's the narrative, it has to be said. It's not because they're black, bro. Do you think there's not corruption in the DA? There is. Yeah. It's got nothing to do with the fact that our president is a black man. It's got nothing to do with it.
I think also, that we're steering off a bit into, the USA, but I think something that's really important is that kind of the whole world looks at South Africa like we are the racist ones. This is not a South African problem. This is a worldwide problem.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah,
and we've got a very strong Trump support base in this country, which is why it's funny to me that people say, ignore him. He's not. We don't live there. It's got nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with us because people listen. The president of the United States, regardless of who he or she is the most influential, powerful person on the planet. It affects what he does and says affects everybody. So it's not just like, oh, Trump, meh, whatever, he's in America. No, dude, that oak is dangerous.
Yeah.
So
I found it positively scary watching what's happening in America now. I mean, it's it's so blatantly racist and so blatantly sexist, and everything that's wrong with the world is kind of the president of the United States is sitting over there doing it all, you know.
Yeah.
And
It makes me worried for the future of the whole world.
It does, because it sort of confirms for a lot of people what they believe. You know, people might not necessarily agree with Trump, but they agree with certain parts of what he says, and that affirms their narrative. So they're like, well, the president of America says that black people are bad, so they must be bad. So I'm going to go with that, because obviously it's human nature. Whatever we believe, we want that belief to be affirmed, and we want to, and that happens. So, you know, it then becomes something that sort of works for the racist people to say, well, he said it, so it must be true. So it is. I mean, you know, and I think with lockdown now, especially, we've realized that the world is not. It's not just your little country. We are global. The world is now. You know, we were united in going through this. You know, we're all more online now. We're connecting. So whatever happens anywhere else, I mean, there's racism stuff. You know, the UK's got quite a big racist problem as well. You know, there's issues sort of worldwide. You know, Australia is also not free from its racist issues. So this is something that filters through the whole world. You know, it's not something that's unique to us, and it's something that we all have to collectively try and deal with. And it has to be something that we all do, not just one little country tries to not be racist when the rest of the world is carrying on. And so, yeah, it's just a...
And that being said, the youth are... If you see what some of the young sort of social justice movements that are led by young people, they are going to change the world, because they are not afraid. Like the kids that are fighting gun control, fighting for gun control in the US. Those kids are brave. When I was that age, I didn't know anything. I was still like crying about boys and a whole bunch of other nonsense. Like a lot of these kids are they're so smart. Like they just know so much more. Obviously, the internet has helped. But yeah, I think that's now comes back to social media, where if we're going to encourage our kids to understand things, have them follow people that see the world in a way that is not, you know, I suppose Kardashian-esque, you know, people that are making change and talking about real things, and that helps as well.
I think we need to stop silencing children. You know, when the children want to have a say, when they want to talk, when, you know, they want to stand up for issues, I think it's so important that we allow them to have that voice. You know, when the teenagers have a discussion at school, I mean, I saw it at our school, they were literally saying, please, can you help us talk about this? Please, we want to talk about it. We need you to help us. And the school was like, I don't think it's a good idea. I'm like, no, just let them talk, listen to them. You know, it might make you uncomfortable. Okay, so what? Go deal with it at home. Like, suck it up, buddy. It's not about you. It's about these kids asking for help. And it's something that I've tried to do, is to not silence them. So when I say something, you know, my kids disagree with me often. They'll be like, I'm not going to do that because you do it. I don't agree with that, and that's okay. You know, I think a lot of us were brought up in a way where your parents eat your food and then you eat your food. We believe this, so you believe that. We go to church, so you go to church. It was very much like that, and so a lot of people have carried that on, but that's not necessarily the right way to go. We need to encourage our kids to think for themselves, to talk up about it, and have the courage to listen to them when they talk.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that point. You know, they need to learn how to stand up when they believe something that not everybody else believes in, and that's how change is going to happen.
I think that's a mark of excellent parenting, that your kids feel safe enough to disagree and to say, well, I don't like that. That's not my vibe. I'm not going to vote for that party because I actually believe in this, whatever it may be. I think that's a mark of flipping excellent parenting there.
It's not always easy, but
no, nothing about parenting is easy.
Nothing.
But exactly. So, you know, you want to say to them, but just, you know, eventually sometimes somebody's like, well, this is how it is. So that is what we're going to do. But I just think that you're doing them a disservice, because I have to send these kids out into the world. Like next year, my son goes. He's going off. I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there to filter him. I'm not going to be there to help him. He's got to do it. So if I haven't given him the skills to be able to do that, then I feel like I've failed as a parent. And even if that means that he does something that is completely different to how we live, that's okay, because that's his journey. It's not my journey anymore. He's got to go and do that. Yeah, so it's something that I feel it's quite important that we do as parents, is encourage them to really just go on their own, be their own person.
Having their own minds, using their own minds with disrespect, and those two are not mutually exclusive. No. Making your own decisions, they are smart, and the fact that they're using those skills to make up their own minds, it's not disrespectful, unless there is obvious disrespect. But those things they don't always go together.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. It's like if you and I disagree on something, that doesn't mean I don't like you as a person or that I'm not going to be your friend anymore. It just means that on this specific issue, we disagree. And that's okay. If you want to vote that way and I'm going to vote this way, that's okay. I'm not hurting you. You're not hurting me. Neither one of us really know what the outcome is going to be like. So let's just do you, I'll do me, and that's how it's going to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Totally. Cool. Ladies, I've just gone through this, not too much more comments I can add here. Chantal, I will add some books for children and toddlers on racism. I'll research that and I'll add some in. And I think we've just about covered this topic. So I'm going to announce the winner of the 100 Rand Take a Lot voucher. And I have no, it can't be you. Do you want to pick a winner though?
No, it's okay.
You can pick the winner. Are you sure? Laura, do you want to pick a winner?
No, it's fine. You go. Off you go.
Okay. I'm going to go with Haley Bachman. Haley, you can just send me a inbox message to my page, and I will, stay in contact with you, and I'll get your voucher to you as soon as possible. And then, ladies, wow, thank you so much. It has been absolutely fantastic. Keri, I've seen your work, and I've seen, the drama you create on social media. It's absolutely fantastic. It's great to see you out there and, sharing what needs to be shared. And Laura Kim, thank you so much for joining as well. It's been absolutely amazing getting to know you better and all of that after seeing your blog. Thank you so much for joining, ladies.
Thanks for having me, man. It was lekker.
Twice. It was good.
Yeah.
And Laura, congrats on your first live video on Facebook. Keri, I don't think it's your first.
No.
Awesome.
Well, now,
so, everybody have a great Friday. Have you got any parting comments you want to give, Keri?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's a really important topic. It's obviously, I can't believe we've been chatting for 1 hour and 30 minutes. And obviously, it's not something that can be covered in such a short period of time. But especially amongst white parents, it needs to be tackled vocally. So I think this was an excellent topic for you to have hosted. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Awesome. Thank you for joining. Laura, any parting comments before we sign off?
Just talk to your kids, guys. Just talk the whole time. Just keep talking, because they'll surprise you. You'll surprise yourself. We can't shut conversation down about anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Great. Cool. Cheers, everybody. We'll catch up with you again next week. I think next week we're doing, I don't know. Let me think. I think it's going to be a video on collaboration and women supporting women in business, and that will be Alison Deary and me again on Facebook and YouTube. Cool. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you.